It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of July 25th, 2003. We got 4 films to look at today, a lot of notable films, so let's go ahead and get right to it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is for the third consecutive year, a Spy Kids movie coming out, and this time they used the power of 3D. Not the 3D that we have, but we'll delve into that in just a second. This is a Spy Kids 3D Game Over. Yeah, this isn't really much of a movie as it is a digital production. I mean, literally, the opening title of the movie, the credits of the movie literally call it a Robert Rodriguez digital file, which kind of makes sense here, but it also kind of hurts the film in the long run, but we'll delve into that as we go along here. But let's talk about the movie in general. So once again, you have Junie and Carmen Cortez setting out on their most mind-blowing mission yet, journeying inside the virtual reality world of a 3D video game designed to outsmart them. As the awe-inspiring graphics, awe-inspiring is not the best word to use these graphics, but I'll get to that in just a second, and creatures of gaming coming to real life. Relying on humor, gadgetry, bravery, family bonds, and lightning-quick reflexes, the Spy Kids must battle through tougher and tougher levels of the game, facing challenges that include racing against road warriors, surfing on boiling lava, in order to save the world from a power-hungry villain played by Sylvester Stallone. So needless to say, this is not the best of the Spy Kids movies, but you know what, considering what comes after this, I'd still rather take this over the 2 Spy Kids films that came after this, which this was intended to be the final installment of the trilogy, and coincidentally, this was actually the first Spy Kids movie I ever saw. We went to see this in the theater because of the 3D gimmick. It's just like, okay, this is back. Keep in mind, this was back before digital 3D, like how we have 3D nowadays. But they were still using the 3D gimmicks, like the old school plastic glasses and all that. It was actually the second movie this summer that tried to bring back that gimmick. I mean, we already talked about Rugrats Go Wild, where they had the smell-o-vision thing, which didn't pan out well here. But nevertheless, the film still did very well. It actually became the highest-grossing film in the series, just for the fact that this series still has a loyal fan base to it. And even with a film like this, it is definitely the lesser of the 3 films. That gimmick helped it make a lot of money in the long run. Plus, I mean, the more I look back on it now, when I saw it, it was just like, okay, it was fine for what it was when I saw it back in 2003. There was that brief little period of time when I saw it again in the mid-2000s, 2010s. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't hold up quite well. But watching it again recently, I'll give it this. Considering what the last 2 Spy Kids films we had after this, All the Time in the World and Armageddon, this really made me come back to this and say, you know what, this wasn't all that bad. It wasn't great, but you know what, there's at least fun factors in this movie that are still here from the previous 2 films. Like, they bring in everybody back from the first 2 movies. I mean, George Clooney comes back in here in a scene that he literally shot in one day in his apartment, wearing nothing but pajama pants. And he plays the president in this, and I think that's kind of hilarious. And Sylvester Stallone's having a good time with this as well, too, playing the villain as the toy maker, which I think he's very fun in this. Ricardo Montalban's got a bigger role in here, which I actually like him in this. One of the last things he was a part in before he eventually passed away, but like I said, they bring in everybody back from the previous movies. I mean, you see characters that were villains in the last couple films back as now, like, people working with the good guys like Salma Hayek, Mike Judge from the Tony Shalhoub, Alan Cumming, Steve Buscemi's back, Bill Paxton, Elijah Wood is the guy in here, Selena Gomez, Glenn Powell, who. That's how I knew. That's why I was watching this movie again recently, because a lot of people were saying that's that Glenn Powell kid that everyone's talking about. He was in this movie. Like this was one of his early outings, and that just made me kind of realize that for as much flack as I give with some of his movie choices, I'll give him this. Guy's worked a lot during in the last 20 years to get to the point where he is right now, where he's now one of the hottest stars out there. Kudos to you, man. I give you a lot of credit for that. But As far as the film itself goes, it does have those little brief flashes of ridiculous silliness to it. I mean, it's a very silly film. It's a film that's not really all that clever. It's a film that's not really all that fun as compared to the other two movies, but there's still elements of it that make me say, you know what? I'll give you credit for what credit's due. You did actually have a lot of entertainment value to it, whether or not it was actually intentional or not, but, you know, the more I think about it, the more I do kind of have a soft spot for this film. It's definitely not as good as the other two Spy Kids films we've looked at, but it's certainly a lot better than the two that came after this, so I guess I gotta give it a pass on that. So if Spy Kids 1 and 2 were kind of like a B+, B area, this would probably be C+, maybe on a B- level. It's a film it's a gimmicky film, but a fun gimmicky film. I mean, it delivers what it promises, but it's definitely not the strongest of the films that came after it, but certainly a lot better than what came before. Let me rephrase that, because I think I got it wrong. It's certainly not as good as the two films that came before it, but it's certainly a lot better than the two films that came after it, so not much more to say about that one. So let's go ahead and get to the other sequel that some might say was a gimmick as well, but it didn't really pan out as well as they thought it would. But Angelina Jolie back as Lara Croft in Tomb Raider: The Cradle of Life.
Tomb Raider, think again. Are you truly prepared for what you're about to learn? Joel Sequel calls it the rare summer sequel that's more fun than the first.
So, boys?
Roger Ebert gives it thumbs up. It's nothing short of incredible. People magazine says Angelina Jolie is even sexier than in the first. And USA Today says Tomb Raider has one of the most jaw-dropping stunts this summer. People actually fly. Tomb Raider, rated PG, now playing.
What a way to sell your movie with that critical review at the end there. People can fly. Come see The Cradle of Life. Yeah, needless to say, not a lot of people went to this because this thing actually kind of flopped pretty badly. Despite a known director, John DeBont at the time, as the director, and you have Angelina Jolie back again. But anyway, off the coast of the volcanic island of Santorini, the intrepid archaeologist Lara Croft makes the unexpected discovery of a throbbing golden orb able to guide its holder to the mythological Pandora's box. As the legendary artifact contains ancient mysteries and unfathomable power, Lara needs to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Especially the unscrupulous former Nobel Prize winner and now a bioweapons dealer Jonathan Rhys, and with the help of a former agent Terry Sheridan, played by Gerard Butler, pre-300 of course, the fearless adventurer travels the world in pursuit of the precious item. However, can she retrieve it in time to save the day? What do you think's going to happen? Unlike the last movie, which was fun for what it was, this is kind of a typical sequel that just really doesn't have a lot there that really makes it all worth it in the end. It's a film that's just kind of like, sometimes it has those brief flashes of promise to it, and Angelina Jolie, I think, really does carry these movies to a level where I could say that they're passable, but even in this film, it's just kind of like, they're really pushing their boundaries with this, and you don't really buy into the relationship between her and Gerard Butler in general, but Kieran Hines plays the doctor in here, Jonathan Rhys, who I thought was okay for what he was. But you can tell this was clearly a film that was written by guys who have never seen the video games and only looked at the video game cover and maybe read the back of it and just said, okay, we can make a movie off of this. I mean, this is Stephen A. D'Souza. I wrote Street Fighter, and I mean, yeah, look at what Street Fighter has become. I mean, you may have made the Street Fighter movie that's tolerable, but you still didn't make a good Street Fighter film, and you certainly didn't make a good Tomb Raider film either. But it just doesn't have that same ebb and flow as the original film did. And this is the one that I actually went to. I remember when we used to have a friend that gave us these screener passes, and we went out to the waterfront in Pittsburgh to see this at the Big Lowe's Theater down there for a special preview. And I guess I kind of remember the movie on that level because, hey, I got to see before everybody else did. And at the time, I just thought it was okay for what it was. I mean, I thought it was fun. It's a fun summer blockbuster film, but looking back on it now, it definitely was a film that really was a major step down compared to the previous film and just showed that, yeah, this really wasn't going to fly pretty well. I mean, you needed to get somebody else to come in and really give this series a lift to it, which they eventually did with Alicia Vikander in Tomb Raider, the 2018 film, which I still think is the best one of the series. But this, it's just meh. I mean, it's a film that's definitely a step down from the first movie. It just feels like a film that is your typical video game movie written by people who clearly have never seen the source material and just did a Cliff Notes version of what they had to research and just said, here's our movie, and here it is. And it's just like, It's nothing that special, honestly. It's just a film that's just... So, with that said, let's get to easily the best movie of the week, and I don't think that's really much of a surprise. It's Seabiscuit with Tobey Maguire and Jeff Bridges.
Everybody loses a couple, and you either pack up and you go home or you keep fighting.
Critics are calling Seabiscuit the best film of the year. A beautiful tale of courage and triumph against all odds. Seabiscuit is magnificent, inspiring, and glorious. Newsweek says nothing can stop this story from putting a lump in your throat.
He made me better. You made me better.
Tobey Maguire, Jeff Bridges, Chris Cooper. Seabiscuit, rated PG-13, coming to DVD December 16.
Gary Ross and Tobey Maguire teaming up again for the first time since Pleasantville. And the story here is based on the story of the racing career of Seabiscuit, an undersized and overlooked thoroughbred racehorse whose unexpected success made him a hugely popular media sensation in the United States during the Great Depression, even though his rider, Tobey Maguire, is blind in one eye. It's a film that's clearly going for Oscar bait, but you know what? It's a good Oscar bait movie because everybody in the movie is playing their parts very well. You mean, Tobey Maguire really shows why he's a great actor. Jeff Bridges shows why he's a great actor here. Chris Cooper's great. William H. Macy's really good here. Nobody ever talks about Elizabeth Banks in this movie, who really gives a really damn good dramatic performance in this. I mean, you know, she can be very funny, but she can also be very dramatic, too, and work very well with the material given to her. I mean, it's a really good-looking film, a good period piece film, a fun underdog sports story that actually is very well done. You can see why it was nominated for Best Picture. Was basically nominated for 7 Oscars and didn't win any of them, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because the movie deserves some recognition. It's a film that's very good. I mean, it's a film that really is engaging. It's a story that, granted, we've seen done to death so many times before, but the actors are what makes it work. It's a film that you really do get behind these characters and this horse, and it's shot beautifully, too. John Schwartzman does a very good job with the cinematography. It's just a great film. Not much more to say, man. Seabiscuit is just a film that, it's definitely one of the best films of the year, easily. It's a film that's very well done. I can't recommend it enough. Seabiscuit, great, great film. So, with that said, on to the last movie we have here, and that is the movie Camp.
IFC Films presents a comedy about drama.
Oh!
Think they're on the roof? It's colorblind casting. What do you want me to do?
Do we look like any Jews you know?
Who are you people? What planet did you beam down from? Camp.
So it's Glee before Glee, and again, I talked about this, I think, yesterday with IMDb. They're more like this section is very interesting. I want you to take a look at this. So they recommend stuff like The Mostly Unfabulous Social Life of Ethan Green, Rocket Science, The Last 5 Years, and then what's the last thing they recommend? Kind of like yesterday with how Bad Boys was like it was something that was not Bad Boys related. What was the last thing that this thing has as a recommendation of other things you should see? 60 Minutes. Because why not? Because you should watch 60 Minutes before you watch a movie like Camp. I mean, it's just... I mean, what else could you possibly watch besides that? But I digress. The storyline here of Camp is that misfits in their lives back home, a group of young people live it up at a musical theater camp while the sports counselor is completely ignored. The kids spend all their time in rehearsal for a grueling schedule that includes a new show every 2 weeks. Several personal stories come to the fore, including a talented golden boy named Vlad, who's honest in his feelings about Ellen, a cross-dressing guy named Michael, who has a relationship with his parents, a one-hit musical playwright and now camp counselor who remains mirrored in drink and cynicism, Fritzy, who slavishly serves glamour girl Jill, is finally told to get a life, and the parents of Jenna, whose jaw has been wired shut and a compromise to avoid being sent to fat camp. Learn a valuable lesson at the summer's biggest end-of-the-season benefit. You can tell this written by somebody who was probably writing for the studio in general here, but I did not know this was directed by Todd Graff. Now, this is a guy that you might not recognize by name, but I've seen a couple of the other 2 films he's directed, and I really like the films he's directed. I mean, he did the criminally underrated Band Slam with Vanessa Hudgens and is it Vanessa Hudgens or Vanessa Hudgens and Ali Mashaka, and also Galen Connell. But I also really like Joyful Noise with Dolly Parton and Queen Latifah. I couldn't believe this was the same director overall. And I remember this film getting a lot of attention. I mean, I remember seeing the commercials on TV. You saw it in Blockbuster all the time. This film is also notable because it's the feature film debut of several notable people, none bigger than Academy Award nominee Anna Kendrick. And you also have Robin De Jesus, future voice contestant Sasha Allen, a group of Broadway performers, and of course Stephen Sondheim is also in there playing himself. It's definitely not a great film, but it's a film that, like I said, has a lot of things that we would eventually see take place in Glee. And it's funny because The Simpsons, when they had the Glee cast on there, did an episode that was literally like this movie, where Lisa goes to a camp where it's the people from Glee, and they're doing things at this musical camp with the guys from Flight of the Conchords. I mean, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's kind of hard not to notice that when you see this film and then Glee, and then you watch that episode of The Simpsons and think to yourself, like, this has to be intentional. I mean, The Simpsons might have been predicting something here. That doesn't even make any sense in this case. But bottom line, I thought it was kind of interesting that The Simpsons did something similar to Camp and Glee in this situation. But in this case, the film itself is just okay for what it is. I think this director has made two better films in general, but I don't know, the film itself was okay for what it was. I mean, it's a film that definitely shows the future stars involved here, showing what they can do, and I think it works fine on that level. I think it's a film that's very enjoyable for what it is. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing. Some of the musical numbers can be pretty fun, but it's a film that's just kind of like for a one-time watch. It's fine for what it is, but I'd recommend this director's other two works before I would say watch this film. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that one. That is Camp. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and next week's movies are very, very interesting to say the least. One's a good film, An American Wedding, and the other is seen as one of the most notorious flops of all time. In fact, the film that some said back then was the death of Ben Affleck's career. That is, of course, Geely. So we'll take a look at both of those movies, two radically different movies, even though they're both rated R and they're comedies, but we'll delve into those as we go on to the next episode, which will be tomorrow. But until then, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plays on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. With that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, take care.